I always thought I had everything a man could want: a loving wife, a beautiful home, and, most importantly, my little girl Mia. She was the light of my life, the reason I worked late into the night and rose early every morning. Whenever she giggled or called me Daddy in that sweet, innocent voice, all my worries melted away. But then the doubt crept in. It started as a whisper in the back of my mind, something I shoved away, refusing to entertain. But doubt is like a seed. Once planted, it doesn't just disappear. It grows, and the more I tried to ignore it, the more it took root. It wasn't a single moment that triggered it, but rather a collection of tiny things that shouldn't have mattered but suddenly did. Mia's dark curls, so unlike my straight brown hair. Her deep green eyes, strikingly different from Sophia's soft blue ones. Her complexion, just a shade darker than either of ours. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Genetics could be tricky, unpredictable, but the thought still lingered, haunting me in quiet moments. One evening, as I sat in the living room watching Mia play with her dolls, the flickering light of the television casting soft shadows on her face, I found myself staring, searching, desperately looking for something of me in her features. "Mark!" Sophia's voice snapped me out of my trance. She was standing in the doorway, wearing one of my old college sweatshirts, her blonde hair damp from the shower. She looked at me curiously. "What are you thinking about?" I hesitated for a fraction of a second too long. "Nothing," I lied, forcing a smile. She smiled back, but something in her expression shifted, her eyes flickering with something unreadable. She walked over and sat beside me, curling into my side like she always did. I wrapped an arm around her, inhaling the familiar scent of her lavender shampoo. I wanted to believe everything was fine, that my thoughts were just paranoia, tricks played by an overactive mind. But deep inside I knew the seed had been planted, and it was only a matter of time before it grew into something I could no longer ignore. I wanted to let it go. I really did. For days, I tried to push the thoughts aside, to tell myself that I was being irrational, that Mia was my daughter, my blood, my legacy. But the more I tried to silence the voice in my head, the louder it screamed. At work, I found myself staring blankly at my computer screen, struggling to focus on spreadsheets and emails. At home, I studied old family photos, trying to find a resemblance I wasn't sure existed. I dug through albums, scrolling through digital pictures on my phone, anything that might confirm what I so desperately needed to believe. But every time I compared, the differences felt starker. It was the little things, the delicate curl in Mia's hair that neither Sophia nor I had. The golden undertone of her skin when mine was pale, Sophia's even lighter. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her lips. One night, after Sophia had gone to bed, I sat on the couch with a whiskey in hand, staring at an old picture of my parents. My mother's dark brown eyes, my father's angular jawline, features I had inherited, but Mia hadn't. I pulled up a photo of Mia, placing it side by side with my own childhood picture. My chest tightened. I saw nothing of myself in her. Sophia found me like that an hour later, whiskey half empty, phone in my hand. She leaned against the doorway, watching me for a moment before speaking. "You've been acting weird lately," she said softly. I exhaled, rubbing my face. "Just tired." She frowned, stepping closer. "Is it work?" "You've been distracted." I hesitated, gripping the glass a little tighter. "No, it's nothing." Her expression shifted, concern laced with something else. Maybe frustration. Maybe something deeper. "I know when something's bothering you, Mark." She reached for my hand, her fingers warm against mine. "Please talk to me." This was it. This was my moment to ask, to lay my fears bare and hope, pray, that she would ease them. Instead, I forced a smile. "It's really nothing, babe. Just stress." She studied me for a long time, her blue eyes searching. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Okay." She leaned in, pressing a kiss to my forehead before heading back upstairs. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I should have said something, should have asked, but deep down, I was terrified of the answer. Doubt is a cruel thing. It doesn't simply whisper, it festers. It digs its claws into your mind, twisting your perception until everything feels like a lie. By the time a month had passed, I could barely look at Mia without feeling that gnawing uncertainty in my gut. I loved her more than anything. But was she really mine? I needed answers. One evening, after Sophia had left for her weekly book club and Mia was fast asleep, I stood in the bathroom staring at her toothbrush. The small, pink handle with little cartoon animals printed on it sat in the holder next to mine. It would be so easy. My hands trembled as I picked it up. My stomach turned with guilt. This was my daughter. I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't be sneaking around my own house like some paranoid, jealous husband. And yet, I couldn't stop myself. I sealed the toothbrush in a plastic bag, placed it in my jacket pocket, and left the house before I could talk myself out of it. The lab was a small private facility a few miles outside of town. No hospital paperwork, no records that could find their way back to Sophia. Just results. Cold, hard facts. The technician at the front desk barely glanced at me as I filled out the paperwork, paying extra for expedited results. 3 days. That's how long it would take. As I handed over the sample, my fingers felt numb. You'll call me directly? I asked. She nodded. Discreetly. We don't share results with anyone but the person who ordered the test. Discreet. That was what I needed. I drove home in silence, my thoughts spiraling. What if the test confirmed Mia was mine? Would I feel relieved or guilty for doubting her in the first place? And if it confirmed the opposite? I gripped the wheel tighter. If Mia wasn't mine, then everything I knew about my life, my marriage, my family, everything would shatter. 3 days. I just had to survive 3 days. I barely slept that first night. Every glance Sophia gave me felt like an accusation, even though she had no idea what I had done. Every time Mia called me Daddy, I felt like a fraud. At work, I stared at my computer but couldn't focus. I snapped at my employees over trivial mistakes. Even my assistant, Paul, asked if I was feeling okay. I'm fine, Edith. The second night, I lay in bed beside Sophia, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing, my mind racing. I wanted to reach for her, to lose myself in her touch like I always had. But I couldn't, because if the test came back negative, if Mia wasn't mine, then Sophia had lied to me in the most unforgivable way. On the third day, my phone rang at exactly 10:47 a.m. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering. This was it. I stepped outside my office, closing the door behind me, my hands slick with sweat as I answered. Hello. A pause. Then the technician's voice, calm and clinical. Mr. Carter, we have your results. I exhaled shakily. And another pause. Then, I'm sorry, sir. The DNA test confirms that you are not the biological father. The world stopped. I gripped the edge of my desk, my knees threatening to give out. Not mine. Mia wasn't mine. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Mr. Carter? The technician's voice sounded distant. Would you like a printed copy of the results? I hung up without answering. My hands shook as I set the phone down. The office felt smaller, suffocating. Sophia had lied to me. She had betrayed me. And now, I had to confront the woman I thought I knew. The woman who had destroyed my life with a single, unforgivable secret. The drive home felt unreal, like I was watching myself from the outside. My hands gripped the steering wheel too tightly, my knuckles white, my breath shallow. The words from the lab technician echoed in my head. You're not the biological father. I replayed those words again and again, like an inescapable nightmare. Mia wasn't mine. Sophia had lied to me for years. And yet, through the storm of betrayal and anger, there was something else. A deeper pain. Because no matter what the DNA test said, Mia was my daughter. I had rocked her to sleep in my arms when she was just a newborn, soothed her cries in the dead of night. I had kissed scraped knees and wiped away tears. She was mine in every way that mattered. But Sophia? I clenched my jaw as I turned onto our street, my heart hammering in my chest. She was home. I could see her car in the driveway. She had no idea what was coming. I slammed the front door behind me, the sound echoing through the house. Sophia appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her brows knitting together in confusion. Mark, she said, tilting her head. You're home early. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My hands were shaking. She took a step toward me, concern flickering across her face. Is everything okay? I reached into my pocket and pulled out the crumpled envelope from the lab. My hands trembled as I tossed it onto the counter between us. Read it, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She blinked, glancing between me and the envelope. What is this? My patience snapped. Read it. Something in my tone made her hesitate. She picked up the envelope, slowly pulling out the single sheet of paper. I watched as her eyes scanned the words, the color draining from her face. For a moment, she didn't breathe. Then, her lips parted. Mark, I slammed my fist against the counter, making her flinch. Don't, I growled. Don't you dare try to explain this away. Tears welled in her eyes. I never meant to hurt you. I let out a bitter laugh. Never meant to hurt me? You let me believe she was mine. For 3 years, Sophia. 3 goddamn years. She wiped at her tears, shaking her head. It wasn't like that, Mark. Please, just let me explain. I folded my arms, my body rigid. Go ahead. Explain to me how you let me raise another man's child like she was my own. Explain to me how you looked me in the eye every day and lied. Her lip trembled. She gripped the counter for support, her breathing uneven. I didn't know, she whispered. I scoffed. Bullshit. I swear, Mark. I swear I didn't know for sure. She swallowed hard, her voice breaking. It was just one time. A mistake. It didn't mean anything. I felt sick. Who? I demanded. Who was it? She squeezed her eyes shut, fresh tears slipping down her cheeks. Ethan. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Ethan. Her co-worker. I had met him once, years ago. He shook my hand, looked me in the eye, and smiled like he was just some friendly guy. And all this time, he had been laughing behind my back. I took a step closer, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Did you ever plan on telling me? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Jesus Christ, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. You weren't ever going to tell me, were you? Sophia broke then, sobbing into her hands. I was scared, Mark. I didn't want it to be true. I told myself it didn't matter because you were her father. You always have been. I stared at her, my rage giving way to something colder. Something final. No, I said. You don't get to decide that. Her breath hitched. Please, please don't do this. I turned away. I had already made my decision. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me, wasn't going to let her twist this into something forgivable. I grabbed my coat, my movements stiff and mechanical. Mark, she choked out, reaching for me. Where are you going? I pulled away from her touch, stepping toward the door. I'm done, Sophia. Her sobs grew frantic. No, please. Don't leave. Don't take Mia away from me. I stopped at the threshold, my back to her. You don't deserve to say her name. Then, without another word, I walked out. I don't remember much about the drive after I left. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, and my thoughts were a mess of anger, heartbreak, and cold determination. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to get as far away from that house as possible. Away from Sophia, away from her lies, but not away from Mia. That was the one thing I knew with absolute certainty. I wasn't going to let Sophia's betrayal take my daughter from me. Even if she wasn't biologically mine, she was still my little girl, and I was going to fight for her. By the time I pulled into a hotel parking lot on the other side of town, I had a plan forming in my mind. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to make sure Sophia paid for what she had done. She had lied to me, humiliated me, stolen years of my life, and I was going to take everything from her in return. The first thing I did was call my lawyer, Daniel Reed. We had known each other since college, and I trusted him more than anyone right now. When he picked up, I didn't waste time on pleasantries. I need to file for divorce, I said, my voice hard and steady. There was a pause on the other end. Then, Mark, what the hell happened? I exhaled, rubbing my temple. Sophia cheated. Mia isn't mine. A low whistle. Jesus, man. I'm sorry. Don't be. I need to know what my options are. Daniel's tone shifted, turning professional. You want full custody? Yes. It won't be easy, he warned. The court typically favors joint custody unless there's evidence that she's unfit. She lied about paternity, I said coldly. Is that enough? There was a pause. It could be. Paternity fraud cases don't always guarantee sole custody, but if we can prove emotional distress, financial deception, and damage to the child's stability, we might have a case. I don't just want custody, I said, my jaw tightening. I want to take everything from her. Another pause. Then Daniel sighed. I'll see what we can do. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal paperwork, phone calls, and quiet, seething rage. Sophia called me dozens of times, sent endless texts begging me to come home, to talk, to work things out. I ignored every single one. Instead, I focused on building my case. I collected every financial record, every document that proved I had spent years supporting Mia under false pretenses. I gathered evidence of Sophia's affair, the DNA test, old text messages I had managed to dig up, even social media posts where Ethan had commented under her photos, subtle but damning. I wasn't just divorcing her. I was exposing her. And then came a court date. Sophia sat across from me in the courtroom, her face pale and drawn. She looked thinner, like she hadn't been eating, and her hands trembled as she clutched the edges of the table. Good. I wanted her to feel a fraction of the pain she had put me through. The judge listened as Daniel laid out our case with ruthless efficiency. Your Honor, my client was led to believe he was the biological father of Mia Carter for over 3 years, Daniel said. During that time, he provided emotional and financial support under false pretenses. This was not a simple mistake. It was an intentional deception that has caused my client severe emotional distress. Sophia's lawyer tried to argue that DNA didn't change the fact that I was Mia's father in every way that mattered. That's when Daniel went for the kill. Your Honor, we are also requesting full custody on the grounds that Mrs. Carter's deception has demonstrated a pattern of dishonesty that is harmful to the child's well-being. Furthermore, we have financial records showing that Mrs. Carter funneled household funds into secret accounts during the time of her affair. Sophia gasped, turning to me with wide, betrayed eyes. I stared back at her, expression blank. Her lawyer scrambled to recover, but the damage was done. The judge ruled in my favor. I was granted full custody of Mia. Sophia was allowed visitation, but only under supervised conditions. And as for the financial deception, she was ordered to pay restitution for the years I had unknowingly supported another man's child. By the time the ruling was final, Sophia had lost everything. Her marriage, her home, her reputation, and I didn't feel the slightest bit sorry for her. That night, after putting Mia to bed in our new apartment, I stood by the window, looking out over the city. The battle was over, but the war? I wasn't done yet, because Sophia had ruined my life, and now I was going to own hers. Winning custody of Mia should have brought me peace. It should have made me feel like I had finally regained control of my life. But revenge is a strange thing. It doesn't always bring satisfaction. It just leaves you wanting more. Sophia had lost everything, and yet I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't enough. I had spent years living a lie, raising a daughter that wasn't mine biologically, trusting a woman who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. And while the court had sided with me, it didn't erase the pain. I needed something more. I needed to make sure she felt the weight of her choices every single day. And that's when the idea came to me. Sophia had been struggling ever since the ruling. The court had ordered her to pay restitution, but she didn't have the money. She had been forced to move out of our home and take a job at a small cafe downtown just to keep herself afloat. A cafe that just so happened to be up for sale. The decision wasn't impulsive. I spent weeks quietly working with a business broker, securing financing, and ensuring that my ownership would remain discreet until the right moment. I didn't want Sophia to see it coming. When the deal was finalized, I walked into the cafe for the first time, not as a customer, but as the new owner. The place was small, cozy, and filled with the scent of fresh coffee and pastries. The staff bustled behind the counter, taking orders and steaming milk, completely unaware of what was about to unfold. And then I saw her. Sophia stood behind the register, wearing a simple black apron over a faded blue blouse. She looked tired, her once perfectly styled blonde hair now tied in a messy bun, dark circles beneath her eyes. She didn't see me at first. She was too busy ringing up a customer, forcing a polite smile as she handed them their change. But when she did, when her gaze lifted and locked onto mine, her entire body went still. Her lips parted slightly, her face draining of color. "Mark," she whispered. I stepped forward, sliding my hands into my pockets. "Hello, Sophia." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. What are you doing here?" I let the silence stretch, savoring the moment. Then I reached into my jacket, pulled out the official ownership documents, and placed them on the counter in front of her. Her eyes flickered down, scanning the paperwork. And then she gasped. "No," she breathed, shaking her head. "No, this can't be real." "It's real," I said calmly. "I own this place now." Her hands trembled as she gripped the counter. "Why?" she croaked. I tilted my head, watching her. "Because I could." Her breathing grew uneven. "Mark, please." "Relax," I cut in smoothly. "You still have your job. I'm not here to fire you." She stared at me, her blue eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Then what do you want?" I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice just enough that only she could hear. "I want you to wake up every morning knowing that you work for me now." Her breath hitched. "I want you to come in every day wearing that apron, knowing that I control whether you keep this job or not. I want you to understand what it feels like to have no power, to depend on someone else's mercy." Her lips quivered. "Mark, please." I straightened, giving her a cold, satisfied smile. "Get back to work, Sophia." She hesitated, looking like she wanted to say more, but I had already turned away. This wasn't about conversation. This was about control, and I had just taken it back. Owning the cafe changed everything. For the first time since Sophia's betrayal, I felt something close to peace. Every morning I dropped Mia off at daycare, then stopped by the cafe, not for the coffee, but to remind Sophia exactly where she stood. And she knew it. I could see it in the way her shoulders tensed whenever I walked in, in the way her hands trembled slightly when she handed me my drink, in the way she avoided my gaze, knowing that I could fire her at any moment, but choosing not to. I wasn't cruel. I didn't make a scene or belittle her in front of the other employees. But I made sure she understood she wasn't the one in control anymore. I was. One afternoon, I arrived just as the lunch rush was winding down. The cafe had a warm hum of conversation, the smell of roasted coffee beans and fresh pastries filling the air. I took my usual seat by the window, watching as Sophia busied herself behind the counter. She looked different now. The arrogance she once carried was gone, replaced by something smaller. Her once perfect blonde hair was constantly tied back in a simple ponytail. The expensive clothes she used to wear had been traded for the standard work uniform. She had lost weight. She wasn't the same woman who had deceived me for years, but that didn't mean I had forgiven her. Not even close. I sipped my coffee as she approached hesitantly, a folded piece of paper in her hands. "Mark," she said quietly, glancing around as if afraid someone might overhear. I set my cup down, arching an eyebrow. "Yes." She shifted uncomfortably. I need to talk to you." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Go ahead." She hesitated before sitting down, placing the paper on the table between us. "I need a raise," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I leaned back, studying her. "You need a raise?" She nodded, wringing her hands together. "I can barely afford rent. The restitution payments the court ordered," she swallowed hard. "Mark, I don't have enough to survive." I tapped my fingers against the table, considering her. "You should have thought about that before lying to me for 3 years." She winced, looking away. "I know. I made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I let out a cold laugh. "That's what you're calling it." Her eyes snapped back to mine, filled with unshed tears. "What do you want me to say, Mark? That I hate myself? That I regret every single choice I made? Because I do." I watched her unmoved. She took a shaky breath. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm trying to make things right. I just need a little help." I stared at her for a long moment, letting her squirm under my gaze. Then, slowly, I picked up the paper, glancing at the amount she had written. It wasn't much, barely a few extra dollars an hour. I folded it neatly and placed it back on the table. "No." Her face crumbled. "Mark, please." I stood, smoothing out my shirt. "Get back to work, Sophia." She looked like she might argue, but then she just lowered her head, nodding weakly before standing and walking away. As I watched her retreat, Something inside me twisted. Not pity, not sympathy, but something close to satisfaction. This was justice, and I wasn't done yet. Sophia's life had become a shadow of what it once was, and I was content to let her live in it. But while she was stuck in the ruins of a life she had destroyed, I was moving forward. And part of that forward motion came unexpectedly. Her name was Laura. I first noticed her a few weeks after finalizing the cafe purchase. She was a regular, always coming in around the same time every morning. Tall, brunette, with hazel eyes that had a playful spark, she carried herself with confidence, the kind that wasn't forced or arrogant. The first time we spoke, it was simple, just a casual comment about the weather as I waited in line for my coffee. It became a habit, small conversations, a shared laugh, a growing interest that I hadn't felt in years. And Sophia noticed. One Friday morning, I sat by the window, scrolling through emails on my phone, when Laura walked in. She spotted me and grinned. "You always get the same thing." "Huh?" she teased, sitting across from me without waiting for an invitation. "Black coffee. No sugar, no cream." I smirked. "I like consistency. Or you're just stubborn." I chuckled. "Maybe both." Her eyes gleamed with amusement, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt light. Like I wasn't just the man whose wife had cheated, or the guy plotting his ex's downfall. I was just Mark, having conversation with a beautiful woman. As we talked, I noticed movement behind the counter. Sophia. She was watching us. She tried to be subtle, keeping herself busy wiping down an already clean counter, but I could feel the tension radiating off her. Her grip on the rag was too tight, her jaw clenched. I ignored her. I focused on Laura, and I made sure Sophia knew it. A week later, Laura and I went on our first official date. It was nothing fancy, just dinner and drinks, but the connection between us was undeniable. She was smart, funny, and refreshingly honest, something I hadn't experienced in a long time. As the night went on, the tension between us shifted into something else, something electric. When she reached across the table and brushed her fingers against mine, I felt a hunger that had been buried under years of betrayal. "Do you want to get out of here?" she murmured. I didn't hesitate. The moment we stepped inside my apartment, it was like a floodgate opened. Her hands were on me, mine on her, and for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about pain or betrayal or revenge. I was thinking about her, the way she smelled, the way her breath hitched when I kissed her neck, the way she looked at me like I was the only man in the world. I wasn't just reclaiming my life. I was taking back my desire, my passion, myself. And Sophia? She had no choice but to watch as I moved on without her. I wasn't flaunting my relationship with Laura. Not intentionally, anyway. But Sophia saw it. She saw the way I smiled when Laura walked into the cafe. She saw the way Laura's hand brushed my arm when we talked, the way we laughed easily, effortlessly, something Sophia and I hadn't done in years. And it was driving her insane. One afternoon, I stopped by the cafe after picking me up from daycare. Laura was already there, sipping her usual caramel latte at a corner table. When she saw us, she grinned and waved Mia over. "Hey, kiddo," Laura said, crouching to Mia's level. "I missed you." Mia giggled as Laura ruffled her curls. She adored Laura. It was effortless, natural, the kind of connection that couldn't be forced. I felt eyes on me. I turned toward the counter and locked eyes with Sophia. Her expression was unreadable, but her grip on the espresso machine was tight, her knuckles white. She looked like she wanted to say something, but held back, her lips pressed into a thin line. I didn't give her the satisfaction of acknowledgement. I turned back to Laura, placing a hand on her lower back, guiding her toward the table where Mia had already climbed onto a chair. Sophia had lost the right to claim any part of my life. But that didn't mean she wouldn't try. A week later, she did. I had just dropped Mia off at my mother's house for the weekend when my phone buzzed. "Sophia, can we talk? Please." I ignored it. 5 minutes later, another message. "Sophia, it's important. It's about Mia." That got my attention. I called immediately. "What's wrong?" She hesitated. "Nothing's wrong, I need to talk to you. In person." I sighed. "If this isn't about Mia, it's about her," she insisted. "Please, Mark, just come by." I won't take much of your time. Against my better judgment, I went. When I arrived, Sophia was already waiting at the door. She had made an effort. Her blonde hair was neatly curled, her makeup subtle but intentional. She was wearing a fitted sweater that hugged her curves, paired with jeans I knew she wore when she wanted to feel confident. I ignored all of it. "What do you need?" I asked, stepping inside but keeping my arms crossed. She closed the door behind me, wringing her hands together. I lied. It's not about Mia. I clenched my jaw. Then why the hell am I here? Sophia? She took a shaky breath. "I just needed to see you." I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "You're unbelievable." I turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm. "Mark, wait." I yanked my arm free. "No, you wait. You don't get to play these games anymore. Whatever you think is still between us, it's gone." Tears welled in her eyes. "You don't understand. Seeing you with her," she swallowed. "Mark, do you love her?" I met her gaze without hesitation. "Yes." Sophia's breath hitched, like I had physically struck her. She shook her head, blinking back tears. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. We were supposed to fix things." I let out a cold laugh. "Fix things? You expect me to forget what you did?" She reached for me again, desperation in her eyes. "I made a mistake. A terrible, horrible mistake. But I love you, Mark." I never stopped. I took a step back, putting distance between us. "I stopped," I said, my voice steady. "And it's the best thing that ever happened to me." Her face crumbled. "Mark." I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. I had spent enough of my life chasing after a woman who had never truly valued me. Now, she was the one left chasing, and I was never going to let her catch me. Sophia didn't stop trying. She texted. She called. She even showed up outside my apartment once, waiting in the rain like some desperate romantic heroine in a movie. But this wasn't a love story anymore. She had written our ending the moment she let another man into her bed. The problem was Sophia had never truly lost before. She had always been the one in control of her life, of her relationships, and for the longest time of me. But now, she was drowning in the consequences of her choices, and there was no one left to save her. I ignored her every time, until one day I didn't. She showed up at the cafe on a slow afternoon, walking in like a woman carrying the weight of her own destruction. I was behind the counter, checking the inventory sheets when she approached. "Mark," she said, voice soft. I didn't look up. "If this isn't about work, I'm not interested." She let out a small, shaky breath. I just want to talk." I sighed, finally meeting her gaze. She looked exhausted. The once proud, confident woman I had married was gone, replaced by someone hollowed out by regret. I should have felt satisfied. I should have enjoyed seeing her like this. But all I felt was nothing. And maybe that was the true victory. I set my clipboard down. "Fine. Talk." She hesitated, as if rethinking her words. I wanted to say, "I'm sorry." I crossed my arms. "You've said that before." "I know." She swallowed hard. "But I don't think I ever really meant it until now." I stayed silent. "I lost everything," she whispered. "You, our family, my reputation, and I deserve to lose it. I see that now." I searched her face, trying to find the lie, but there wasn't one. This wasn't manipulation. This wasn't a ploy to win me back. This was genuine remorse. And for the first time, I felt something close to pity for her. "I don't hate you, Sophia," I said finally. "Not anymore." She blinked, looking surprised. "You don't?" "No," I shook my head. "But I also don't love you. And I never will again." She looked down, nodding slowly. "I understand." A long silence stretched between us. Then, she cleared her throat, forcing a weak smile. "I'm trying to get my life together," she said. "I know I have a long way to go, but I want to be better." For the first time in a long time, I actually believed her. And maybe that was enough. Before she left, she hesitated in the doorway, looking back at me one last time. "I hope you're happy, Mark," she said softly. "Truly." I exhaled, my mind flashing to Laura, to Mia, to the life I was building without Sophia in it. "I am," I said, "for the first time in a long time." And with that, she walked out of my life. For good. Sophia never reached out again after that day. And I never looked back. Life moved forward, steadily, effortlessly, beautifully. It was strange at first, waking up without the weight of betrayal pressing down on my chest. Strange, but freeing. Mia and I had settled into our new life together, just the two of us. I woke up early to make her breakfast, walked her to daycare, and tucked her in at night with bedtime stories that always ended in a tickle fight. She was my world, my purpose, my real family. And Laura? She was the missing piece I hadn't realized I needed. Our relationship deepened quickly, but it wasn't rushed. It was natural, like something that had been waiting to happen all along. She didn't try to replace Sophia in Mia's life. She didn't need to. She was just there, patient, kind, and fiercely protective of both of us. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching Mia doodle in her coloring book, Laura leaned in and whispered, "I love you." The words hit me like a soft, warm wave. Not like a revelation, but like something I had always known. I turned to her, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I love you too." She smiled, and I kissed her, long and deep, knowing for the first time in my life that I had found something real. A year later, we got married. It wasn't a grand event, just a small ceremony with close friends and family. Mia standing between us as I promised to love and protect them both for the rest of my life. She called Laura Mom for the first time 6 months later. And when Laura teared up and hugged her tight, I knew I had made the right choice. Because family wasn't just about blood. It was about love, and I had finally found mine. As for Sophia, she had moved away, rebuilding her life in another town, far from the memories she had burned to the ground. From what I heard, she had found a new job, a small apartment, and had started therapy. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't wish her pain. I just didn't care, because I had everything I needed. A wife who chose me, a daughter who loved me, and a life that was finally my own. And for the first time in years, I was at peace.